Students, today I'm going to discuss Aristotle's concept of plot. Students, in his text Poetics, Aristotle devotes a major portion of his discussion of tragedy to plot. His concept of plot provides the basic underlying principle of his theory of tragedy. Students, first of all, let's try to understand what is a plot. A plot in general is defined as the structure of incidents in a story, whether it is presented narratively or dramatically. And it can be called the sequence or how the incidents or the actions are arranged to produce certain effect. Or we can say that every literary work reflects the social realities, and those social realities are not presented before the audience or the reader in a chaotic way. They are arranged in a specific way to arouse certain effect. So plot is basically a design, a pattern, a structure, how the incidents are arranged to be presented before the audience. As far as Aristotle's views of plot are concerned, if we look at the definition of tragedy as given by Aristotle in chapter 6, we find that in the very first part of the tragedy, Aristotle has made it clear that how the plot, how the incidents in a tragedy should be arranged. He says a tragedy is an imitation of an action that is serious, complete, and also as having magnitude, complete in itself. Students, look at the highlighted text in this slide. This highlighted text just makes it clear to us that how Aristotle has formed his concept of plot. Students, Aristotle has given a greater importance to plot, as I have just told you that it is the basic underlying principle of his theory of tragedy. And in my previous video, as I have discussed with you people the six formative elements of tragedy, plot is given the most attentive and extensive coverage in Poetics. And this is not surprising considering that Aristotle thought the plot to be the very soul of tragedy. Students, Aristotle calls plot the soul of tragedy, and this plot or the making of the plot involves artistic selection and ordering of the chaotic material of life. The plot involves the arrangement of incidents, as it has been explained earlier, and all those events and incidents are arranged into a coherent pattern. And in this process of arranging things into a perfect pattern, the issue of inevitability, probability, and necessity come in. What are they? That how far a particular incident is inevitable, how a particular incident is probable to happen, and how a particular incident is necessary to happen. So, on the law of inevitability, probability, and necessity, the incidents are arranged. Actually, Aristotle just implied in his concept of plot that there should be a logical connection between the events and the whole thing being governed by the law of probability and necessity. Aristotle's statement regarding tragedy insists that it be a representation of an action which is complete, means the plot should be complete. In other words, the action should contain all the relevant information needed for the understanding of that action. I'm using the word action because in the definition, Aristotle says that the tragedy is imitation of an action. So here action is to mean the physical action as well as the mental or emotional action, means whatever going on in the mind and heart of the character, that is also counted. So as far as the arrangement of that action or arrangement of the incident that those are which are connected with that very action should be in a coherent pattern, should be complete in itself, and there has also got to be an air of finality about that action. That was Aristotle's point. There is no place for the chaotic, the irrational in the construction of plot. Aristotle say what he wants to say about this very word complete. His plan or his idea was to make it very clear that the events should be arranged in such a way that there should be a proper beginning and a middle and an end in that very structure of incidents. To be more elaborate, I would like to say that Aristotle was of this opinion that the beginning of the plot should be followed by the middle, and the middle is that which follows upon a situation, and in turn is followed by the end, and the end is the consequence of the middle, either by necessity or as a rule. It does not have anything following it. So in this way, the beginning, the middle and the end are to have a logical connection, a causal relationship. And actually Aristotle is insisting upon that a play should have a good reason for beginning where it does and ending where it does. Its incidents should follow one another in a logical connected sequence, not in a irrational way. There should not be any coincidence or irrelevance. That was his plan. And in the definition of tragedy, he has used two words. One is whole and another is complete. For complete, he is to say that things should be arranged with the beginning, middle and end. And a whole adjective is added to emphasize this completion of the structure of events. And what does this whole complete structure mean? As it is shown in the plot diagram, that the beginning, middle and end should be arranged in a way. In the beginning, there should be some sort of exposition, means beginning of the story where character and setting are just introduced. And then the rising action begins. How? Where the main character faces a series of conflicts and ultimately it reaches at the climax, that is the middle point. And what happens in the climax? It is the most exciting part of the story when we learn the outcome, and after the climax, the falling action. What does this falling action mean? It means events leading to the end of the story, and then lastly, end of the story, resolution. So there is a sequence, there is a connection between rising action, climax and falling action and the final resolution. So in this way, Aristotle talks about plot which should be whole and complete, means it should has a proper justified beginning, middle and end, and all three should be interconnected rationally, logically. The next important thing which Aristotle points out about plot, that a complete plot should have a unity of action. So this unity of action means that all the events should be focused in such a way that the outcome seems to be natural. There is no deus ex machina. Deus ex machina is means at the end of the story there is no need to introduce any divine figure to settle the matter. And secondly, in a plot, the action should be unified. There should be no loose plots. No multiple sub stories should not be there. It's okay if a subplot can be there, but that subplot should be there to support the main plot, main story. So Aristotle was against loose plots, episodic plots. He favored a well-structured, unified plot. Students, Aristotle talks about two types of plots in poetics. One is simple plot, another is complex plot. A simple plot is one in which there is no peripeteia, means no reversal of situation. There is no anagnorisis, means there is no discovery of the truth. Actually, it is some sort of continuous plot developing towards the end without any of the sudden surprises or sudden discoveries. Aristotle preferred the complex plot. And what is there in a complex plot? And Aristotle thought that an ideal tragic plot would be one in which there should be reversal and recognition, and the plot which works on the principle of reversal and recognition is the complex plot. Aristotle has used these two terms, peripeteia for the reversal of situation and anagnorisis for recognition of truth or for the discovery of truth. In the case of the complex plot, tragedy is not brought about by some outside agent. The reversal arises from the structure of the plot itself. It is brought about by human error, by human blindness, by the result of good intentions going wrong because of an error of judgment or an ignorance of the real situation. So Aristotle recognizes the tragedy of errors to be the deepest of all types of tragedies. This reversal or peripeteia is actually the fatal working of the plot to the opposite of what is intended. And discovery is the recognition of the truth of the identity of persons or the truth of situations. Actually, students, peripeteia can be said to be a recoil effect of one's actions. It is a significant change which leads to the crisis of the play. It involves irony. It is the irony of circumstances brought about by human misjudgment, human miscalculation or blunder or the error of judgment, we can say. It leads to the tragic end because a deed done with the best of intentions has ultimately gone wrong. And the ideal tragedy is one in which the reversal of situation happens through the good intentions of friend or close relative of the hero, producing the opposite of what is intended. And we all know men's actions are motivated by the best of intentions, but he works in blindness and hence to his own destruction or to the destruction of those he loves. This is what makes tragedy great, deep and moving. This is when the deepest irony occurs. And anagnorisis or discovery, as Aristotle tells in Poetics, is a transition from ignorance to knowledge. It is capable of producing hate or love between characters. After the discovery, what happens? The plot must shift in a new direction. Thus, we find that discovery is closely linked with the reversal of situation. It is both of these things. Peripeteia and discovery can occur separately in a tragedy, and it is also possible that only one of them is used in a tragedy, but the best tragedy uses both simultaneously. Peripeteia and discovery, peripeteia and anagnorisis occurring simultaneously enhances the tragic effect. So Aristotle just favored the complex plot for the moving tragedies. So in this way, Aristotle's concept of plot is in keeping with what we have come to call classical, we can say. There is an insistence on order, pattern and design, and the chaotic material of life should be brought under systematic discipline, so the events seem to happen in a logical sequence with no irrelevancies. There has to be a single action consisting of episodes which are logically connected and causally related, and moreover, lastly, he prefers the plot which shows a change from good to bad fortune as being most fit of for his tragedy. So in this way, Aristotle has introduced plot as the soul of tragedy in his poetics. Thank you.